Let's start with the computer fundamentals. What exactly does this computer fundamentals mean? Everyone almost at least once might have heard a word called computer. What does this computer mean? With the definition of the computer, we know that computer is an electronic device which accepts the input, and after the input is been accepted, it does some kind of process. Now this process takes place inside an CPU. Now once this process is done, the user gets the meaningful result. So this is what computer means. To revise, a computer is an electronic device which accepts an input signal, and based on this input signal, certain operation takes place inside the CPU, and the end result is a meaningful result which we get as an output. This is where you get the output, and this is where the input has been taking into the consideration. Is hardware and software. So what do you mean by hardware? I hope everyone, or at least once, you might have opened a motherboard, and what do you find inside a motherboard? There are lots of chips and a transistor or even a RAM. These physical components which you can touch or you can feel is nothing but the hardware. The computer itself is an hardware. The CPU, the monitor which you are seeing in front of your eyes, or the screen of your mobile, those things are hardware. And moving on with the software. So hardware, whenever you see the RAM does some kind of processing. The screen, it shows some kind of data to us, or the CPU which is doing some process. There are certain things which are the certain instructions which has to be given to this hardware so that it can function. So this set of instructions which are provided to the hardware is nothing but the software. So the software is a set of instructions and the data that makes hardware functional to complete the desired task. As I mentioned in hardware, that you can touch the hardware components and you can even feel them. But in software, you can neither touch them nor feel them. So talking about the example of both hardware and software, hardware examples are RAM, keyboard, printer, monitor, and CPU, and many more. You can even be the mobile screen. And talking about the software, it can be the web browsers or the YouTube, the Microsoft Office, the VLCA player. The VLCA player is nothing but where you play the music. So getting back to the definition of computer, we discussed some three components, that is input and the processing that takes place in the CPU and the output. We will be discussing one by one in this topic, that is functional components and functioning of the computer. This is one of the favorite questions which you will be getting in your question paper or even in the exam, the functional components and its functioning. So it's nothing but the same definition of the computer, where you take the input, you process them, and you can provide we get the output after the processing is taken place. So the computer system primarily comprises a central processing unit, a memory, input-output devices, and the storage devices. This storage devices is nothing but the memory. All these components function together as a single unit to deliver the desired output. So let's take this diagram into the consideration. As mentioned earlier, the input is being processed. That means the input is given by the user, or this input is given by, or it is taken from any devices. So once you get the input, it should be processed, and this process takes place in the CPU. But before the process, there are some things which you should be considering. What are this input and what are these input devices? The device through which control signals are sent to the computer are termed as input devices. So it can, as I mentioned earlier, input devices are nothing but the digital signals. That is, it can be given by the user through the input devices. These devices are nothing but the keyboard. you're typing the keyboard and that letter is being generated to your system. That is some kind of digital signals which is been taking place in the backend. So the keyboard, the mouse, touch screen, even the touch screen, you're giving some kind of input to the screen so that you can get or you can trigger a function. So once this input devices generates the input, the data goes to the CPU. The CPU is where the main task takes place. Based on the CPU, what is the CPU? First of all, the CPU, it is an electronic circuitry of the computer that carries out the actual processing and usually referred as the brain of the computer. So whenever you buy a laptop or computer, right, you will come across a word called processors. This processor is nothing but a CPU. So you can tell that CPU is nothing but a processor which does processing, and it is considered to be the brain of the computer. And when you open the computer CPU, right, it's very small in size, and this small chip, it consists of many microchips which is called as integrated circuits. This integrated circuit are nothing but a semiconductor materials which takes part in the data flow. So they are just used to carry out the data, and they are used to process them. So basically, the CPU has three main units through which it takes out the input and process them. The first is arithmetical logical unit, the second is the control unit, and third is the memory unit. So first, the ALU unit. Yeah, ALU is nothing but arithmetical logical unit. So talking about arithmetical logical unit, consider two numbers, okay? A and B, you're adding them, and you can even subtract them. You can even multiply them. You're taking A and B as an input, and you're doing processing on them. This addition, subtraction, or any arithmetic operation you're performing, right, it comes under ALU unit. Now talking about CU unit, right? CU unit is nothing but the art of the CPU or art of the computer. The main processing, it takes place inside the CU, and it facilitates the data flow or the set of instructions which is coming through the CPU, and this CU is responsible for you to carry out your operation and get the meaningful result. Talking about the definition of the CU controls the sequential instruction execute, interprets instruction, and guides data flow through the computer's memory. As I said, CU is just used to use the data to flow through the execution period, and this data flow is saved into the memory. We'll talk about memory later, but now the processing is done. Now the input is done, the processing is done. The last thing which is that you are getting the result. Obviously, right, when you're putting an input and you're processing it, you should get a result, right? And that part takes is done using an output device. An output device is used to receive the data from the computer system for the display or the physical production. If you recall the definition of input device, it is used to send the signal data to the computer, and exactly the same takes place in the output device. Output device, it is used to receive the data from the computer system and then display it to the physical production, that is output device. The example of output device can be the monitor, the headphone, right? You are getting the music signal back to your ears. That's nothing but the example of output device. And it can even be printer. You are just giving the ink. Ink is nothing but the input for the printer, and the paper which is coming out through the processing, that's the output. So when we were discussing about the CPU, we came across a word called memory unit. What exactly? Now let's discuss what memory is. Let's go for a flashback and revise what we did in the processing field. The data it is getting into the electronic device, and this device it is processing it. So where do you think this processing data is stored into? This processed data it is stored into a memory. Sorry for this wrong drawing. Memory. So now whatever the data or the instructions which the input had provided, or whichever it was got processed through CPU, this gets saved into a memory. Computer system needs memory just to store the data and instructions which are processed. And basically this is of two types. The first type it is primary memory, and the second is secondary memory. Talking about the primary memory, now just take this example again. The data it is processing, do you think you need an external device to store this processed data? Obviously this external device is required, but for the time being, the data whichever it is getting processed, I mean, when you're watching a video on YouTube, do you think you need to store the watched video for an external device? No, right? This processing it is taking place internally in your device, and this internally taking place it's stored into the primary memory. And furthermore, primary memory it is divided into two types, that is RAM and ROM. The RAM is nothing but random access memory, and ROM it is abbreviated as read only memory. And we'll take this YouTube example again. You're watching a video on your computer, and once the battery goes off or once the power cut is done, the YouTube video is gone. I mean, whenever you turn off your computer system by mistake, when you're watching a YouTube video, that's gone. You need to restart your computer. You need to open the YouTube channel again, and you have to open that specific link again to watch that specific video. It doesn't automatically comes back once you open your system, right? So RAM is nothing but volatile. That is, as long as the power is supplied to the computer, it retains the data in it. But once the power supply is gone, the contents in the RAM which it was processed, it is wiped out. The RAM is basically used to store the data for the temporary use. So once this temporary memory or temporary the data is getting stored, right, the faster process takes place in the CPU. So when you compare primary memory and secondary memory, the primary memory has the faster process and the faster time it takes for the data to be stored. Now talking about the second type of primary memory, which is ROM. ROM is non-volatile. That is, just consider that you are saving your data into ROM. That is our bootloader. Okay, a bootloader. What this does, it can be a startup program. That is, once the data is lost, right? Whenever the power is goes off, some kind of data it is stored in ROM. That is, it is just permanent. You can't remove it unless you want to remove it on your own. It doesn't just erase off whenever the power goes off. Thus, the reason why ROM it is used for this main purpose, because whenever the content is lost, right, you just have to store them for some kind of purpose so that you can come back and watch that again. And ROM it is used for that kind of purpose. And when you talk about the faster process, the RAM is much faster than ROM. As I mentioned earlier, there are many situations where you need to store data externally, that is into the secondary memory. The secondary memory is the second type of memory. And since primary memory is very limited, you sometimes need a larger data to be stored into a device. Now consider an example of pen drive. Whenever you download a video, right, you just save it into a pen drive, and this pen drive it is used to store your larger capacity video for a longer period of time, and it can be used for the future years. And secondary memory, it is basically used to store the data for the longer period of time so that you can use this data or the instruction for the future use. And obviously, when you're using this for the future use, right, it is non-volatile. No matter what power comes in or power goes off, whatever happens, your data will be saved there for a longer period of time. And you just no need to just go back or store it again and again. Once it is saved, it is saved. And it is non-volatile. And you can call it as it is a permanent device. The example of software, the example for secondary device, it can be HDD, which is usually comes in almost laptops or most of the computers. The DVDs, which you used to use in olden days, the CDs, the memory cards, and even floppy disk. And you can even include pen drives. So these are the devices where you can store the data for the future purpose. Now let's get into software for the more purpose. Till now, we have just studied software as a physical component, which is used to give instruction for the hardware. And hardware, it is used to process only when the software provides instructions to it. And what kind of softwares are used, and there are different kinds of softwares which we will come across right now. We have already discussed what these examples are, and I'll tell this again. Windows, Android, Fedora, Linux, these are kind of operating systems which we'll be discussing later. VLC player, it is used to listen the music, and it's a kind of software. And there are some kind of programmers, or there are many pro programmers which have designed or which have programmed this VLC player so that you can listen to the music. And Adobe, it is used for photoshopping, and it is a very famous software which is used by lots of people in designing field. The Microsoft Office, it is mostly used by the presentation users, and it can even be the student. And this PDF which you are viewing right now, and even it is made using the Microsoft Office. And there are many more examples of software which we'll be discussing right now. So these are the examples, and the next is the types of software. There are two types of softwares. The first one is system software, and the second one is application software. Talking about system software, the software that provides the basic functionality. Now you can just see your Windows, which you use in your computers, and or the mobile, the Android. These are the basic functionality which is running your entire system, right? Now, if you consider this Windows, based on this Windows, your complete computer is running. And if you don't have Windows in your computer, it's nothing. It's just a bunch of scrap, you can say. So if you don't have system software installed into your hardware, it doesn't operate. So a system software knows how to operate and use different hardware components of the computer. It provides service directly to the end users, and what the end users are nothing but you people. So consider the example of Android or a mobile. The Android is nothing but a software which is installed inside a mobile, and this mobile is an hardware. As mentioned earlier, the set of instructions are software which is provided to the hardware. So this Android, it is provided to the mobile. So this mobile, it is functioning based on that. So talking about the example of system software, it includes the utility system or the operating system or the device drivers. The next thing is compilers, interpreter, and assemblers. When we talk about the software, right, the one thing you need to understand is that the computer understands only machine learning language. And this machine learning language includes zeros and ones. And this is also called binary language. And you need a translator. If you want the computer to understand what you are speaking, right, you need to convert your language into zeros and ones so that the computer can understand. And in that picture, the compiler, interpreter, and assembler comes place, which are used to convert your high-level language into the machinery language. So moving on, the operating system. So moving on with operating system, an operating system is a primary software that manages all the hardware and other software on a computer. It is an example of system software. Now consider this example. We'll take a mobile phone as an example. A mobile phone has many applications or software installed inside it. You can name it as WhatsApp, Gmail, YouTube, and many more other functionalities. So now you have this application software which is installed inside your mobile phone. And this square thing is what is your device. Now, if you don't have OS, that is operating system installed in your computer, you just can't use the other services. This operating system, that is OS, it acts as an interface between the computer hardware and it provides services that the application can use. With this definition, you can understand or come to the point that if you don't have operating system, you just can't use your hardware. That is, you can't use your mobile or you can't even use your computer. Operating system is a primary and it is a major use which you should be having in your computer. It is impossible to run your hardware devices without an operating system. We'll take this many more example and we'll take the commonly used operating system as an examples. Consider Windows. The Windows is normally installed on your computer or on the software. In the school and the colleges lab, most of the system, it runs on the Windows operating system. And in the very rare case, there is a Linux operating system just for professionality. We'll talk about that later. The next operating system is Android. Android, it is used in smartphones. Now next is Linux. Linux, it is used by the professional IT specialist or the developers. The developers of Zoom app, the developers of YouTube app, those whoever write the programs, right? Most of the programmers prefer Linux as the basic operating system because it is an open source and it is free. You can use, you can even modify, you can even come up with your own distribution. So Linux is the best choice of the operating system if you are coming into the IT field. The next is the BOS. BOS is nothing but Bharat Operating System Solution. This is an Indian distribution Linux system, or you can say it is a Linux operating system which is developed by Indians, which can be customized based on the Indian needs. The next is Unix. The Unix is an operating system which has a set of program that is used to link between the computer and the user. And it mainly coordinates between us based on certain kernel. This kernel, it is a computer program or an operating system which coordinates this program, which connects the user and the computer. So this is what the Unix mean. And now we'll be moving with the utility softwares. The utility softwares, the system software has again two types. One is operating systems and again utility softwares. Not only system software are very required for the hardware, there are even tools which needs to be maintained or configured by the computer system. And these tools are nothing but the utility software. They are shipped with the operating system. For example, whenever you're installing a new operating system, right, there are some tools which comes with it. And these tools are the utility software. It can be the restore utility or a disk defragmentation tool or the formatting utility. The formatting utility and the disk or defragmentation, these tools are used to manage your disk space, or it is used to improve the performance of the system. And The basic example of this is antivirus software and disk cleaner tool. Disk cleaner tool, it is usually required whenever you have an extra space or when you have to make your computer faster. And the antivirus software, it is basically used when there is some kind of you can call, we'll discuss this later in this chapter itself. Moving on, application software. This is the second type of software. It comes under system software, you can tell it. The system software is incomplete without application software. Now, once you have installed a system software, consider now you have Android. If you don't have anything inside Android, it is useless. This application software, it can be the example you can take and consider any app, a WhatsApp. WhatsApp is an application software. If you don't have this application software inside the system software, the entire operating system is useless. Hence, the new category of software is needed for the different requirements for the users. This specific software that works on top of system software is termed as application software. And the example of this is again, Adobe Photoshop, Mozilla web browsers. You can even give an example of Chrome, YouTube. These are application software which are used for general purpose. That is, everyone can use it. Now, customized softwares. This customized software is nothing but how you customize this. There is a logo of YouTube and there is a logo of WhatsApp. There are tools for color. I mean, you need to fabricate the color, you need to design a color, you need to design a logo. This comes under the customizing softwares. And the main example is website, school management softwares, accounting softwares. Now, next comes open source softwares. Open source software, the short form of this is OSS, that is open source software. These softwares are free of cost. Anyone can use it and even anyone can change it. When we talk about operating system, Windows, Android, they comes with certain license, which is not free for us. We are just using it for free, but it is not freely available for us so that we can modify it. But open source software are those softwares which you can modify. You get the source code available for it. You can modify as long as you need based on your improvement. You can just customize it for your use and you can use it for your own purpose. However you need, you can program it. And such software is also known as free and open source software that is FOSS. For example, Ubuntu. As discussed earlier, Linux programming. Ubuntu is one of the free distribution of Linux. When I say free distribution, it is nothing but free source software, that is open source software. The more example of free and open source software includes Python, which we will be learning in chapter 3. LibreOffice, it is an alternative for Microsoft Office. Mozilla Firefox, that is nothing but a web browser. And the software which is freely available for us to use, but the open source code is not available to us. Now, when we talk about open source software, right, we get the code, we can modify it. But this kind of software that is known as freeware, you can use it for free, but you don't get the source code, which means you can't modify them. And this example includes Skype, or you can even take as WhatsApp, YouTube, Adobe again. You can't modify these programs, but you can use them it for free. And I don't think Adobe is free of cost. And moving on, the functions of operating system, the process management. While computer system is operational, different tasks are running simultaneously. And whenever you are using Windows or any software, right? You can run multiple softwares or multiple programs simultaneously, which means it is multitasking. And the operating system can manage this process and get multitask completed in very less amount of time, which means in less amount of time you can function many programs at a time. This is one of the function of operating system, and it comes under process management. The process management main concern is to manage the multiple process, that is multitasking. It can be that you are watching YouTube in one tab and you are opening WhatsApp on another tab. You are even scrolling memes on Instagram on another tab. So all these thing, all these program are being running together in different tabs, but the process managing it is maintaining everything simultaneously. The exchange of information and the process, it is very fast, and it is one of the main functionality of operating system. The moving on, memory management. As discussed earlier about the main primary memory, whenever the input we are getting, it is getting processed, and the primary memory is very limited. So the main task of memory management is to allocate and take the free memory from running processes. The process which you are doing, it is a free memory, and the primary memory utilizes this free memory. And this again, it is one of the functionality of operating systems. Next, moving on, it is file management. The data and program stored as files in the secondary storage of the computer system. This file management, the data, it is saved in this file management for the future use. This file management, it acts as the secondary memory where the system can handle the main memory of the computer system. You can use this file management to access your data, which is very crucial for your operating system. This comes inbuilt in your operating system. Whenever you install your operating system, right, there are certain files which are saved into your file management, and these are inbuilt, you can say. You can't modify them, they are just inbuilt. This file management. Moving on, next is the device management. Most probably, whenever you want to store the data into the external devices, that is, it can be USB or hard disk or any other devices, you need to connect them to your laptop or the computer, or it can be either any input and output devices. For example, the HDMI cable which you insert inside your laptop and connect it to the projector, or any other input devices. You can just take example of USB, or there are many examples out there. You connect that to your hardware, the operating system, it configures it. This is what you can call as a device management. The device management, it is one of the functionality of the operating system which is used to manage the input and output devices, and it configure this particular device. Now take an example of webcam. You take a webcam, you need to configure that webcam. The webcam is nothing but a device, and using the operating system which is installed in your computer or your device, you connect such hardwares and you can configure them. And after configuring them, you can manage them through your operating system. This is the basic need of device management. And just like file and memory management, disk management requires a security measurement. And I forgot to tell you while mentioning the file management requires security. And what is the basic need of security? Anyone can come and erase your data, right? So you need to have a solid file management security which is used to take the protection of the crucial functions of your operating system. And in the same way, device management also has to take some kind of measurement for the security, so the external devices must be restricted for the operating system only for the authorized users and only for the specific hardwares which is used to be connected. And moving on, so this were the functionality of the operating system. Let's revise it. The first is the process management, where the task execution takes place, and the second is the memory management, where the primary memory allocates or utilizes the free memory for running and processing. And the next is the file management. These are the storage files which acts as the secondary storage devices. And the next is the device management, which is used to connect the external input and output devices and the hardware components. And the next is the number system and the character representment. Now consider you are going to a college, right? You have given a certain ID card for you, and this ID card, it's unique to you. And the ID card which is provided to you, and it is provided to everyone else in your college, right? Everyone has a unique code which is assigned to yourself. So if my name is Tarun, I will have a unique code or a register number which is assigned only to me. There will be no duplicate of my ID. In the same way, in the computer system, there is always a unique ID assigned to every alphabet or every number or even a special character. Whatever you see in your keyboard, right, everything has its unique ID. And you can even call this ID as a code. The American Standard Code for Information Interchange, that is ASCII. In earlier 1960s computers, there was no way of communicating, and they used this certain kind of code to communicate, and the need of the common standard was released to the outcome this shortcoming. So the ASCII Foundation, that is the American Standard Code, they came up with the commonly used coding scheme, and they assigned a certain code for every digit, that is IA as a digit of 65. We will be discussing later in the next chapter. For the basic view, you can just understand the number system and the character representment, the ASCII and the Indian script code, that is ISCI. In order to facilitate the use of Indian language on computers or to meet the requirements of the Indian needs, Indians came up with their own code for information, which came into the existence in late 1980s. It is a 8-bit code representation. Talking about bit, every bit holds some kind of data. It can be either 0 or 1. And if you look at your mobile data, it will be registered as 1024 gigabyte. And byte, it is nothing but a collection of 8-bit. That is 1 byte equals to 8-bit. I'll write it over so that you will understand the spelling. 1 byte equals to 8 bits. And this 8-bit is a memory location of 8 bits, where each bit holds the value of either 0 or 1. And this 8-bit can hold 256 characters. It can retain all 128 ASCII codes. We'll be discussing about ASCII codes later when we'll be talking about the programming language, either Python or C++. For time being, you can just keep in a mind that there are a number system which is used to assign code for every digit which are available on your keyboard, and which you haven't even seen it. So basically ASCII and ISCII, they are just a code for information, just to provide additional codes, or you can assign a code for the symbols. You can just say that. Now moving on. Virus. Virus stands for Vital Information Resource Under Siege. It is sometimes called as malware. It is a computer program that is installed on your computer without your knowledge. Now this computer program, it is a piece of code which is written by a human, and this human, it might be an attacker or an hacker. Now, if you read the sentence again, the computer program that is installed on your computer without your knowledge. What does this without your knowledge mean about? Say you are installing a software that is LibreOffice. So once you have installed the LibreOffice, right, there are many other files which is downloaded with LibreOffice. To those who don't know what LibreOffice is, LibreOffice is an alternative for Microsoft Office where you can create amazing presentation, Word document, or even work on Excel sheets. So coming back to the virus. So one of these files might contain virus, that is the corrupted data or the piece of code which is written by an attacker. Once this virus is under your computer attack, that means once the computer is under the virus attack, it might steal your personal data or even the password, and later this attacker can sell your data and the password in the black market, or even he might threaten you to get your files back, and he might even ask a huge amount of money in order to get your files back. Now, can you detect that your virus is under a computer, that your computer is under a virus attack? So there are many scenarios where your computer might be under virus attack and you might just predict it. And one of the reason is pop-up of Windows. Whenever you are working on, whenever you are on a web browser, right, there are many websites just pop-ups with a window, and once you click it, it just redirects you to then another link. And this another link might even be a cause where your computer might just attract corrupted data, which might be very harmful to your system. The next thing is the frequent crashes. The crashes is nothing but your computer getting hanged and you might not work anything. You just have to shut down your computer so that you can work on it again. The next is slow loading. Your computer, whenever it has the corrupted data, that is virus, your computer becomes very slow and it functions very less accurately. And the next is turning off your computer automatically. You might have just come across this, right? Whenever you are working on some project, or whenever you are working or opening a web browser or watching videos on YouTube, your computer suddenly shut down. Now this again is one of the doing of virus, and you might cure virus. There are many ways where you can prevent virus on from attacking to your computer, and then antivirus comes into the picture. Now we'll be discussing about antivirus. Now, how do you prevent your computer from a virus attack? Is there any way? Of course, there is a way, by installing antivirus software. Antivirus is a software which makes your system clean and secure from harmful viruses or any other attacks through the scanning processes. Now, when is the best way to install an antivirus? It's not that you need to install antivirus when you are under a virus attack. The best way or the best period to install the antivirus is the day when you install the operating system. You need to install antivirus in the start itself. So whenever your computer is under a virus attack, antivirus is already ready, which is already scanning or which is already detecting the suspicious website. Since you are not even able to recognize which file is providing danger to your computer, antivirus is the one which detect, and it even removes such program, and it will alert you that this is the file which was providing um, a dangerous impact on your computer. So antivirus automatically removes the virus, and in a very simple process, it is not also very expensive. There are many software which are very expensive, like Wickel. The main reason many antivirus software are very expensive, and That's the only disadvantage of antivirus. Now, when you say why you need it, the main reason why you need antivirus is just to remove or just to detect the suspicious website or the files or the malicious program that is installed or that has entered your computer. So this is it from the first chapter of the computer fundamentals. To summarize, we just started with the definition of the computer. Once we define what the computer is, we started with the hardware and software definition, and then we moved on with functional components and functioning of computer, where you take input, the input is processed inside the CPU and you get a meaningful output. The input devices, example, keyboard, mouse, touch screen, then the CPU, which has arithmetical logical unit, which performs arithmetical logical operations like addition, subtraction, and various logical operations. The control unit, which controls the sequential flow of your data. Then the output devices, where you receive the data, example, monitor, projector, or speaker. Then the memory, which is again divided into two types: primary memory and secondary memory. The main use of memory is used to store the data. The primary memory is essential component where the data is stored or allocated for the temporary use. And it again, primary memory is divided into two types: random access memory and ROM, that is read-only memory. Random access memory is temporary, which means once the power is gone, all the data is erased and you need to redo it. It is faster than secondary memory and it is faster than ROM. The ROM is nothing but non-volatile, which means its content are not lost even the power is turned off. It is small, but it is permanent. It is slower than RAM. Then moving on with the secondary devices, secondary memory. These are the memory which are used for the future use. Since the primary memory, they are used for just limited capacity. Secondary memory, they are used for larger capacity, which can be used for longer period of time for future use. And the example of secondary memory is HDD, that is hard disk drive, USB, pen, which means pen drive, floppy disk, DVD. Now moving on with the software, we discussed that software it are the set of instruction for the hardware to follow it. There are two types of software. One is system software and another is application software. System software, they are the basic functionality for operating your computer by interacting with the devices of the hardware. The example of this is, or the types of system software is operating system, system utilities, and the device drivers. And we discussed about the compiler, interpreter, and assembler. They are used to convert the assembly or high-level language into the machine learning language. As computer doesn't understand English, it has to be decoded into zeros and ones. And this is where the compiler, interpreter, and assembler takes place or the takes part. The next we discuss about the operating system. Operating system, the example is the Windows, Android, Linux. These are the basic software or the primary software that manages the entire hardware. If you don't have operating system, you can't operate your hardware. So Windows is used in operating system used in school, colleges, computers. Android, it is used in smartphones. Linux, it is used by professional developers. BOS, it is an Indian operating system that is Linux based. Unix, it is used for the kernel program or kernel coordinates. Utility software, these are the software which comes shipped with the operating system. They are the tools which are very useful, and it contains disk cleaner tool, antivirus software. And next we proceeded with application software. Application software are the kind of software which are installed inside the operating system. The example, it might be WhatsApp, Instagram. This software, they provides core functionality for your computer system. And it is divided into two types, that is general purpose and the customized application software. The example of general purpose is LibreOffice, Adobe Photoshop, YouTube, WhatsApp, the customized software. These are the custom or tailor-made application software that are developed to meet requirement of specific organization or individual. The next open source software which are free to use, free to modify. You can modify the code and you are getting the code for free as well. And it is also known as free and open source software, that is FOSS. Aside from open source software, there is a freeware. The freeware are the kind of softwares which are free to use, but you can't modify them, where you don't get the source code so that you can modify them. The example for freeware are the Adobe, Skype, WhatsApp, YouTube, the are the example of freeware. Then we proceeded with the functions of the operating system, which includes process management, memory management, file management, and device management. And moving on, we discussed about the number system, about the ASCII, about the ISCII, where every symbols, every digits, every letters in the computer have assigned a code or ID which is unique to them. And last, we discussed about what is virus, how you can detect or how you can prevent virus, and why you need antivirus. So this is it from the first chapter. I hope you understood everything. If you didn't understand anything, you will be provided with the notes which you can refer anytime. Thank you so much.